Let's pause this. Hello. Welcome to the Return to Her, a masterclass on feminine energetics and leadership. Welcome. I'm Katherine Pfeiffer, and I am going to be leading you through this masterclass. I'm so excited to be here. I am a feminine mystic, a guide. I support women in leadership roles to infuse feminine energetics in their life, their work, their relationships, all the things. And I'm super excited to share this information with you. So, welcome. To begin, let's get situated into our space, into our time, into our frequency. I would recommend if you would like to get yourself comfortable, lean back. You can take notes. You don't have to. You can just let this information infuse into your body, mind, and soul. And you're more than welcome to watch this as many times as you like. I'm going to cough and clear my throat. I get some throat chakra stuff going on. I get so excited about doing these things, and I also get a little nervous. So let's get grounded, and then I will introduce myself further, and we will dive into the content of this masterclass. So, I'd like to invite you wherever you are. If you are able, if you're not driving, if it's safe for you to close your eyes. If you don't feel like doing that, you don't have to. We are just getting connected into the time and space of the frequency of this masterclass. So, feel free to close your eyes. And take in a deep breath. And release. Finding yourself wherever you are. If you need to yawn, by all means do. Let your body code into this frequency. Ooh, we have Neffy entering the chat. She is my black cat. I'm sure she's going to say hello. Taking another deep breath to ground ourselves in. One more. And you can open your eyes when you are ready. Neffy is here. She seems to think that it's dinner time. It is 12:11. So we have an ongoing argument about when dinner time is. You think it's now, huh? Yes. So she might be enjoying the master class with us. She does like feminine energetics, I have to say. She's very into it. So I'm going to pull up my notes so I don't forget anything, and we will begin. So, welcome. We're talking about feminine energetics and leadership today. And this is a She Sacred Masterclass. This you can find for free on my website and also through Substack. And I'm so excited you're here. Usually the She Sacred Masterclasses are through the Sacred Studio, which is also on Substack, and you can get that for $11 a month. We will definitely be doing monthly masterclasses, potentially more, and it's really cool. We might also be doing some free masterclasses through Substack and also through my website, which means you can either get it on Substack and watch it on Substack, or subscribe to the masterclass through my website, which is katherinepfeiffer.com. So, to introduce myself, hi, I'm Katherine Pfeiffer. I have a long history of work in feminine energetics. I preliminarily started my career path as an artist, as a photographer, and then worked for an art studio, for an art gallery for a couple of years doing graphic design. And then I realized that that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I knew I had like a deeper meaning or a deeper calling to support people and to help people. And so I started pursuing art therapy and ended up getting my master's degree. Sorry, I had a little hair there. Got my master's degree in mental health counseling and with a in expressive therapy with a specialization in art therapy. It was a mouthful. Generally, mental health counseling and art therapy. And then I had a career as a mental health clinician and an art therapist working with people in crisis for about a decade. And then from there, transitioned into more mentoring work and supporting people online. And I've been doing that for a while now. I currently live in Sicily, Italy. I live in a small town on Mount Etna, which is an active volcano. And the energy is potent here. It's very magical. It's a very, very, very cool place to live. The food is amazing. It's also hard. There's also a lot of things that um, are challenging about living here and living in a foreign to me country where I did not speak the language and the culture. And it's really interesting because Sicily has its own culture beyond Italy. There's an Italian flavor to it, but there's also a Sicilian culture. And it feels like Italy, but it doesn't. So I could dive more deeply into that at a later time. But there have been a series of initiations for me and a deepening into my work here and has really solidified the feminine energetics in my work and in my life in a really powerful way. So, my work predominantly, like I said, I work mostly with women in leadership. I also work with men if they're wanting to infuse more feminine energetics into the culture of their lives and their business. But I generally work with women where we are unlearning some of the the things that worked for us for a very long time, the things that we thought were the rules to living life and to doing things and to succeeding and to money, where we're really learning how to mold those into different beliefs so that there isn't as much of a contrast between the two and there isn't as much of a this or that sort of feeling. There's more of a duality, more of a ambiguousness to it, more of a flow, which is feminine energetics. And I really support women to be connected and happy and in love with their lives, whether that is in work and in business or in money or in friendships or in lover relationships or in relationships with their children. So you can learn more about me through my website and also on Instagram. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Substack, I'm on Pinterest, I'm on all the things. So, okay, I'm so excited to dive into this with you. Neffy is too. Are you excited? Yeah. She's like, I'd like to be fed. Okay. So, feminine energetics in leadership. So, feminine energetics really restores wholeness to power. There is a difference between masculine energetics and power and feminine energetics and power. And there's nothing wrong with either one of them. They both bring a lot to the table. However, when you are predominantly focused on masculine energetics and you are a feminine dominant person, things can feel really out of balance. So when expressed and balanced, feminine energetics are considered creativity, receptivity, compassion, nurturing, sensuality, inclusion, intuition, mystery, renewal, and unconditional love. Nefertiti. She's gonna go chew the Christmas tree now. Oh, goodness gracious. Um, she's like a little kid, and if she's not being paid attention to, she gets naughty. So for a long time, leadership has been modeled almost exclusively through masculine energetics. A very, 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 very long time ago, we had feminine energetics and power, and the world was set up to support more feminine energetics. And then there was a rewrite of history and a rewrite of the power dynamics, and it became very patriarchal, very masculine dominant. And this infused linear thinking, dominance, speed, hierarchy, and constant output. When you hear the frequency of these words, they'll really align to you if you know what that's like. I know that feeling. I know that feeling of linear thinking, dominance, speed, hierarchy, and constant output. These energies are not wrong, but they're when they're only valued, leadership becomes brittle, extractive, and disconnected from life. It's disconnected from the life source. And because we have been asleep to the magic of feminine energetics, we've been brainwashed to not be aware of it, brainwashed to not be in alignment to it. We know that we know deeply that there's something missing, but we can't figure out what it is. And so now we as a whole are awakening ourselves to the feminine energetics and feel and realizing that there's a lot more to life. If you've ever had that feeling, and I've had it so many times of there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way to do this. Why are we doing it this way? Why is it working like this? I feel like this most of the time. My husband works for a military base. And if you ever wanted to experience unhealthy masculine energetics, I don't know if they're all this way. The one that my husband currently works at is very entrenched in masculine energetics, and some of it is very unhealthy. But I feel like when I go there, it's like going to the post office every day where you're just like in lines forever, and it's very slow and it's very, why are we doing it this way? And so when you start to realize what these things look like, you'll start to be able to see them in real life and ask yourself, this system it's not really like made up that great. Like it's not, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. So, and there is. Yay. Feminine energetics brings the missing intelligence back into leadership. And here's why that matters. So, feminine energetics roots leadership in presence rather than performance. And so we're not looking for an output, we're looking for the presence. Feminine leadership leads from being first, from attunement, intuition, and embodiment. This creates leaders who can read a room, who can sense timing and make decisions that are coherent rather than reactive. There is nothing more unsexy than a woman in leadership who is entrenched in toxic masculine and feminine energetics. It's literally the most unsexy thing. And that's how we were raised. We all have had experiences with women in leadership where they are reactive, where they're looking for the bottom line, where it is about the output instead of the presence. And if you have experienced that in yourself, I would invite you to not feel shame about that because you were taught to produce that way. You were taught to live that way. You were taught to be in those energetics. And if you get caught up in a shame spiral of like, well, she's telling me I'm bad, then we get nothing done. We don't accomplish anything. What I would invite you to really think about is this feeling of that we have all been brainwashed to believe that that's the way leadership has to go and how leadership has to be. So, feminine energetics create sustainable power, not burnout power, sustainability. Somebody asked me one time about my business and the creation of my business, and I just said I want it to be sustainable. I want the work that I put out there to be sustainable. And so I'm very committed to not burning out in my work and not burning out in the productivity. And I enjoy the productivity. I'm not saying, oh, we need to like lean back and not be productive or not push ourselves. I love that. I love being productive. I love pushing myself. I love trying to meet a goal. But when we're in sustainable power, it becomes kind of that metaphor of running a marathon. You know, you have to sustain your body in order to run a marathon, and you can't do it otherwise. And so, what does that sustainability look like? How can we create sustainability in our leadership and how we show up and how we do things? Feminine energetics honors cycles, rest, and rhythm. Leaders operating from this place do not rely on force or adrenaline. Feminine leaders cultivate longevity, clarity, and a deeper well of energy that doesn't collapse under pressure. Feminine energetics increases trust, loyalty, and devotion. People don't follow systems, they follow fields. Feminine energetics cultivates emotional safety, resonance, and relational depth. This is what creates teams, communities, and clients who stay, engage, and invest with devotion rather than obligation. That sounds so much more juicy, doesn't it? Feminine energetics allow complexity without control. The feminine can hold paradox. She doesn't need everything to be reduced or dominated. This makes feminine-led leadership energetically powerful in uncertain, creative, and rapidly changing environments where rigid controls fail. Feminine energetics reconnects leadership to life force, to that force that you feel in your body. Life force you can find in your root chakra and your sacral chakra. It's really found in the base of your womb where it's like or where your womb would sit, like that feeling of groundedness. And that's where the life force is. That's where we connect leadership to life force. When you are able to run your mission from uh, a energetic frequency of life force, it's really powerful. Can you feel the difference between the two, between running your work based on productivity, output, go, pressure, time, go, 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 and then also this like life force energy that's just kind of like a little less concerned on the time, although time is important, and more concerned about the sustainability, the ability to grow further and further and further and outward and outward and outward. When leaders are disconnected from their body, from pleasure, from intuition, their leadership becomes hollow. Feminine energetics reconnects power to eros, creativity, and soul. This is where true innovation and magnetism are born. Mm. Isn't that cool? Isn't that a cool feeling of like, mm. I just like to sit with that for a minute. Feminine energetic reconnects power to eros, creativity, and soul. And this is where true innovation and magnetism are born. Feel that in your body. It just feels so much different than I have to get this done. This has to happen. I'm on a timeline. The creativity has to come. We can't force creativity, unfortunately. Every artist will tell you so. So, feminine energetics balances direction with receptivity. Masculine energy initiates. It's like that making it happen kind of feeling. Feminine energy receives, refines, and magnetizes. When both are present, when they both come into fruition together in this really beautiful way, leadership becomes responsive rather than forceful and visionary rather than aggressive. At its essence, feminine energetics doesn't soften leadership, it deepens it. Feminine energetics creates leaders who are trusted, magnetic, emotionally intelligent, and sovereign. Leaders who uh, leaders whose presence change the room. It's not because they're loud, it's because they are anchored. So let's just sit with that for just a minute because we're going to move on to like why we have resistance to the feminine and why this doesn't sound so much more juicy. Oh, I just want to sit for a minute with this energy and just breathe it in. What does it look like if you infuse feminine energetics into your leadership, into your work, into your business? Like, how does that work? What does that look like? Let's just pause on that for just a moment. So often we can't change timelines, the timeline of when we have a goal, or when we have something that we have to get done. We can't I mean, we could push back our goals or our timelines if we have the power to do so in our work. But often we have things that have to get done. Like there's a timeline, there's like a due date, right? And potentially we are motivated to get things done before that due date. But what we do in the time that we have between the thought of this thing happening and the due date, what we do within that space and the continuum of that time can be really powerful. How you take care of your body, how you take care of your creativity, what you spend your time on, what you numb with, what you choose to not numb, how you choose to not numb. All of that is important. And so I really think that procrastination can be really powerful. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. I think it can get in your way, but I also think that sometimes procrastination can be the sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like when something is fermenting, like it's the fermentation process. That's really not the word I was looking for, but that's what's coming out. So we'll just go with it. So when you think about that, you can start to look at your time in a different way and the way that you utilize your time in a different way. You know, I really think a lot about, I really think way too much about Taylor Swift. And I am really, I like her music, first of all. So I'm going to just say that out loud. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. But we can have this conversation regardless of whether you like her music. I think that she's such a powerful example of a leader in feminine energetics. She uses her creativity really well. She uses her intuition really well. She's always really connected into her manifestation process and into her embodiment of being in the feminine energetics. I mean, everything that she does, her art is so entrenched in feminine energetics. And then as a leader of this great team of people, she's able to motivate and get people excited about her mission. And they operate often, I don't think always, but often on a timeline. I've been watching that Eras Tour show on Disney Plus. I've only watched the first episode so far. But what I literally could not stop crying. And I think because I'm so uh, in awe of how she does her work and how she does this leadership and what a great example she is of the feminine energetics and leadership. And they had a timeline, they had a goal, a place where they had to get to, which was the show every night. They had a 3 hour show and it started on a particular day and it continued until a particular day. And so there was some longevity that happened within that 2 year period of time. But before the tour even came into fruition, they were planning it and figuring out what it was going to look like and what it was going to feel like and the production of it. And that, if you get the chance, like I said, you can love her music or not. I would recommend watching that if you're really interested in what it looks like to be an embodied feminine leader. It's so good. And then she treats her employees so well uh, and they're committed and loyal. It's really a beautiful example. So there also is so much resistance to feminine energetics, specifically with feminine leaders. They're the ones who are like, often feminine leaders are, if they're really, really entrenched in what they have dedicated their lives to, it's hard to change their mind. And so this is where I want to say, if any of this is kind of feels like sandpaper, just give it a moment to percolate because these are concepts that do feel foreign and that will feel foreign. When I was in graduate school, my graduate school program was deeply rooted in feminine energetics. I'm not sure they knew they were, but the problem was that this deeply rooted feminine energetic program was also in a master's degree program that was run by an entity that was deeply rooted in masculine energetics. And there was conflict that happened. And as a product of that experience, I struggled. I had some difficulty because it didn't really make sense. There was these feminine energetics that were coming into play that were really powerful, and also within the masculine structure. And some things got missed for me, and it ended up being fine. There wasn't any like big issue, but it was confusing at the time, and it could have really pushed me away from the feminine energetics. It's like they don't have things together. It doesn't work. It's a great idea, but it doesn't work. And so I think because they didn't realize that they had this like femininity about them, but they didn't realize that they were in this masculine structured entity. They were just trying to make it work. So I've been thinking a lot about that lately. So many women don't fear the feminine itself. They fear what happened the last time they were in it, the last time they were in the feminine energetics, and it burned them. Here's the truth most leadership spaces don't name. For many women, authority was earned by leaving the feminine behind. They learned consciously or unconsciously that softness led to dismissal. Intuition was labeled emotional or irrational. Receptivity was mistaken for passivity. Sensuality was sexualized or punished. Collaboration was seen as weakness. Rest equaled laziness. Empathy cost credibility. So they adapted, they sharpened, they hardened, they learned to lead with armor. And that worked. The sharpness worked, the hardness worked, the armor worked. And it works and it works and it works until it doesn't work anymore. Because armor can hold authority, but it can't hold devotion. It can command respect, but it cannot generate resonance. It can maintain power, but it can't magnetize life because the armor is there and it keeps you protected and it keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. The fear isn't if I embrace the feminine, I'll lose authority. The real fear is if I soften, I will no longer be safe. If I lead from my body, I will be questioned. If I listen inwardly, I will be exposed. If I slow down, I will be overtaken. If I open, I will be misunderstood. So let's reframe this at the level of truth, not as reassurance, but as truth. The feminine, it doesn't remove authority. It changes the source of authority. Authority stops coming from control and credentials alone and constant output and over-explanation and vigilance. Do any of those words resonate with you? Control, credentials alone, constant output, over-explanation, vigilance. I can viscerally relate to those words. I know what that feels like. I know what trying to operate from authority in those constructs feels like. But when the source of authority comes from coherence, presence, self-trust, energetic congruence, grounded boundaries, it feels more rooted, doesn't it? Coherence, presence, self-trust, energetic congruence, grounded boundaries. This is why feminine authority feels threatening to systems built on fear. Because feminine authority doesn't ask for permission. She doesn't justify her knowing. She does not raise her voice to be heard. She doesn't chase validation. She stands up and the room adjusts because of her embodiment. Here's the key distinction most women are never taught. Masculine authority is positional and feminine authority is felt. Have you ever had that experience where there's a woman in the room and she's just so magnetizing? It's just like, once I went to lunch with my husband, this was years ago. This was like in 2008. So it was a while ago. I remember it distinctly though, because I went to lunch with my brother and my husband, and I'm pretty sure my brother's ex-wife was there too, at this lunch. We were at lunch at a mall. Like, I don't think it was like the Cheesecake Factory, but it was a Cheesecake Factory kind of vibe. And also back when the Cheesecake Factory was like a little more of a thing, than it really is now. But we went to lunch at this mall. We were visiting my brother in Texas, and there was a woman there, and her presence was so commanding. She had on this white linen shirt, and she was really beautiful. And I think she was Indian, and she had long black hair, and There was something about her embodiment that magnetized me. I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to be in her presence. She had feminine authority. It was felt from across the room. I could see it in her. And there is something to be said about that. Masculine authority is positional. Get all the degrees, get all the credentials, get all the things that say that you are a leader, which I'm not knocking them. I've got them. I believe in them. I do actually believe in those things. But the feminine authority, the embodiment of being felt, is a lot deeper. Positional authority can be taken away, but felt authority cannot. When a woman reclaims the feminine, she becomes less predictable, not less powerful. She becomes harder to manipulate, not easier. She becomes more discerning, not more porous. She requires less approval, not more, and she leads without depletion. This is not about becoming softer in a way that the world defines soft. It is about becoming so rooted in yourself that force is no longer required. The work then is not convincing women that they won't lose authority. The work is helping them unlearn the lie that authority only comes from hardness. Nothing is taken from you when you embody the feminine. What falls away is what was never truly yours. We can change the dynamics in the playing field. We can be the force of the world looking different and feeling different and being different. And when we start to infuse these energetics in schools, in businesses, in corporations, it feels different. It looks different. When you show up and you're not feeling diametrically opposed, I love those two words together, with the masculine energetics on one side and the feminine energetics on the other, and that you cannot lead from the middle. It can feel really stifling and hard. And so, what that looks like in you, in your body, in your life, is that your relationships falter, your body falters. You feel disconnected from yourself. You can't help but numb. You can't help but need that glass of wine or that long scroll on Instagram. I hate the phrase bed rotting, but sometimes you can't help it. When we are in the dynamics that we have to push harder and harder and harder in order to achieve, we end the day and we end whatever period we're in feeling exhausted. There's a lot of talk about the unwritten responsibilities of mothers in leadership positions, of mothers in life. But the only people who can change the dynamics are us. We are the only people who can change those dynamics. The men, if we're in partnership with men, can help for sure. They can learn new ways of being and they can learn how to change dynamics. But it really has to come from us and not in an angry, resentful, bitter way, but in a this is what's going to make our lives better way. So I'd like to invite you to show up to your work and show up to your leadership, show up to your life using the embodiment of feminine energetics. I'd like to invite you to allow yourself to be in the presence of your leadership, being connected to attunement, intuition, embodiment. Read the room, sense timing, and make coherent decisions and not reactive ones. Honor cycles, rest, rhythm. Cultivate longevity, clarity, and a deeper well of energy. I would bet that as a leader, you will start to feel things shift. And the people who can't be in alignment will fall away. They'll just not be able to tolerate it. And the people who are like, yes, please more, will start showing up or be more aligned. I hope you love this masterclass. I hope that this has supported you in new and powerful ways. I titled this masterclass The Return to Her, a masterclass on feminine energetics and leadership. And the reason why I call it The Return to Her is because she was just forgotten for a minute. She's always been there. She's always been in there within you. And when you start to realize that, when you start to say, oh, yeah, that's right, there is a feeling of returning. And I'd like to invite you, if you did feel a little bit mm, nudged from what I shared, just be curious about what that means for you. There is no shame in this. I have, in my leadership, have done some really like not cool things. And I've had to forgive myself and ask for forgiveness around those things. And I'd like to invite you to be open to shifting and changing, because that's what this life is really about. We're not stuck in a chasm. We're growth. We're growing. We're always growing. Hmm. I'd also like to invite you, if this has ignited you, to come and check out my work. I have so many things coming soon, and I'm recording this at the end of 2025 and 2026. We are going to have a year. And I offer on my website, you will find some fun programs. There's a program about energetic frequency called Energy Queen. There's a program about love energetics called Love Edition. There is a program called the Sacred Femme Experience, which is more about this. It's a bit of a masterclass experiential program. It's a little bit of a hybrid. All of those are self-study. I will also be having a program come out that will be led live about feminine energetics and money, a program that will be held live and in a small container about sisterhood wounds and the feminine energetics and female relationships and female dynamics, which if you are a woman in leadership, that program will be amazing for you. I also have some private containers. I have a short 8-week container and 2 6-month containers, one focused on leadership, one focused on love. And so I would love to invite you to explore all of those options. www.catherinepfeiffer.com /atelier, which is my shop page. You can also just go to Catherine Pfeiffer and click on Atelier. And I would love to have you inside one of those programs in 2026 or all of them. It'd be so magical. I hope this served you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for dedicating yourself to a new way of being and thinking and living. Stay tuned for so many more She's Sacred Masterclasses within the Sacred Studio. I would love to have you in there. I am sending my love. Have a great day. Happy New Year. Bye.